Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are opening up a file that I think it scares people a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, not because it's, a horror story or anything like that, but because it deals with the one thing we all spend our entire lives trying to avoid facing.
Silence.
Silence. And more than that, the noise that happens the second the silence starts. You know what I'm talking about.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about.
You sit down to work, maybe you just lie down to sleep, and boom! Suddenly your brain decides it is the perfect time to open 50 tabs in its browser.
Mm-hmm.
You're thinking about an email you sent 3 years ago, you're worrying about the heat death of the universe, and you suddenly really, really want a cheese sandwich.
It's the universal human condition, isn't it? The restless
Yeah,
mind.
exactly. The monkey mind. And today, we are looking at what might be the original user manual for that monkey. We're diving deep into Chapter 6 of the Bhagavad Gita.
A big one.
It's a big one. And I know some listeners might hear ancient text and think, okay, this is going to be abstract philosophy. But looking at the source material, especially the commentaries we've pulled for this, it is shockingly practical.
It really is. It's almost like a troubleshooting guide for the human brain.
That's a great way to put it. And it's fascinating where this chapter sits in the larger text. Chapter 6 is titled Atma Samyama Yoga.
Which translates roughly to the Path of Self-Restraint, or sometimes you'll see it as Dhyana Yoga, the path of meditation.
Right. But the context is everything. I mean, we've just come off several chapters about action karma yoga, which is all about doing your duty, getting things done, being in the world.
And later, the text moves into devotion, bhakti yoga, a more heart-centered path. But this chapter, this is the bridge between them.
It's the how-to section in the middle of the why.
Precisely. It's a set of 47 verses where Krishna gives Arjuna, and remember, Arjuna is a warrior. He's not a monk living in a cave. He gives him specific instructions on how to tame the mind.
And that's the mission for our deep dive today. We're going to unpack these instructions. We're going to look at the mechanics of meditation, the diet, the posture.
And also the psychology behind it.
Yes, the psychology. And maybe most importantly, we need to answer a question that comes up near the end of the chapter, which is, honestly, it's terrifying.
Oh, the failed yogi scenario.
Yes. What happens if I try to be good, I try to meditate, I try to control my mind, and I fail?
It's the ultimate fear of wasted effort.
That part gave me chills when I first read it, because that's the real fear, isn't it? That we're putting in all this effort for nothing. But we'll get there. First, I want to start with a bit of myth busting.
Okay.
Because I think when people hear yoga or meditation or, spirituality, they have a very specific stock image in their head.
The guy in the orange robes on the mountain.
Exactly. The renouncer. The person who has checked out of society, doesn't pay taxes, doesn't have a mortgage. But looking at verse 6.1 in our source material, Krishna he drops a bit of a bombshell right out of the gate.
He does.
He basically redefines who the spiritual person actually is.
It's a pivotal moment in the whole text. Verse 6.1 states, "One who performs prescribed duties without expectations is both a real ascetic, a sannyasi, and a real yogi."
Okay, without expectations.
Yes. And then he adds a very specific qualifier. Not the one who is simply relinquished performing ritual fire sacrifices.
Okay, let's unpack that fire sacrifice bit, because to a modern ear, that sounds very specific to, Vedic culture. If I stopped cooking dinner last night, does that make me a sannyasi?
Not quite, though I'm sure your family might have had some complaints. In the historical context, the fire sacrifice, or Agnihotra, it represented the core of household duties.
It was more than just a ritual then.
Much more. It was the symbol of social engagement. It required effort, money, materials, and interaction with the community. So to give up the fire was the ancient shorthand for retirement. It meant you had literally walked away from society to go into the forest and do nothing but contemplate.
So the assumption back then was totally binary. You're either a householder with a job and a fire, or you're a spiritual guy in the woods with nothing.
Exactly, as a fork in the road, and Krishna gets to that fork and says no. He breaks that binary completely. She says the true sannyasi, the one who renounces, and the true yogi, the one who acts, are actually the same person.
That is such a cool paradox. So it's not about what you're doing on the outside, it's about your internal state.
Correct. The source material draws this distinction beautifully. It says you can't just drop your tools. You have to perform prescribed duties. The external component, the action, the job, the family life, it actually prepares you for the internal component, which is meditation.
So you can't just jump to the finish line. You can't just say, I'm done with the world, if you haven't mastered how to live in it first.
You can't, because your mind will just follow you into the forest. This reminds me so much of that workplace trend from a while back, quiet quitting.
Oh, yeah, I was thinking the same thing, where people just emotionally check out and do the bare minimum.
That's a great modern parallel. Quiet quitting is often a form of negative renunciation. It's giving up because of lethargy or resentment or just being overwhelmed. In yogic terms, that's tamasic.
Yeah.
It's rooted in darkness or laziness. That is not what the Gita is talking about.
So what is the Gita talking about? I mean, if I'm at my job and I'm stressed, how do I apply this verse 6.1? It feels like a big jump.
It is. But the text is advocating for something closer to what we now call a flow state.
Okay.
You are working hard, you are performing the duty, but you have renounced the anxiety about the result. You've given up the attachment to the outcome.
So you're not doing it just for the applause or for the paycheck or to avoid getting fired?
Right. You're doing it because it's the right thing to do in that moment. That mental shift, that internal renunciation of the fruits of your labor, that makes you a sannyasi, even if you're wearing a suit and sitting in a boardroom.
So you can be a monk in a boardroom.
You must be a monk in the boardroom, effectively. Because if you run to the woods, but your mind is still obsessed with the stock market or that argument you had with your boss, you haven't renounced anything.
You've just changed your location.
We've just changed your zip code.
That really validates this idea that you don't need to go on some expensive retreat to find peace. You need to change your mindset. But, and here's the big but, changing your mindset is really, really hard.
It is the hardest thing there is.
Which brings us to the absolute core of this chapter, segment 2, the mind. Is it our best friend or our worst enemy? Because I feel like mind switches teams every hour.
It can feel that way. And this is covered in verses 6.5 and 6.6. And these are likely the most famous verses in the entire Bhagavad Gita when it comes to psychology.
I've seen these quoted everywhere.
As you should. The text says, quite simply, the mind is one's friend and is also one's enemy.
It's so true, isn't it? At, say, 10 in the morning, my mind is my friend. It's solving problems, it's writing scripts, it's being witty. But at 3 in the morning...
3 in the morning.
My mind is a terrorist. It's pulling up a highlight reel of every embarrassing thing I've ever said since 2005. Remember that time you waved at someone who wasn't waving at you?
That is exactly the duality the text is addressing.
Yeah.
And the commentary provides this brilliant analogy. The mind is like a key.
A key?
Yes. Think about a key in a lock. If you turn it one way, it locks the door, trapping you inside. That's bondage. If you turn it the other way, it unlocks the door, setting you free. Liberation.
But the key itself is neutral.
The key is just a mechanism. It depends entirely on how you turn it.
So the mind is neutral. That's hard to believe when it feels like it's actively attacking me with memories of bad haircuts.
The mind is a mechanism of processing. The text says that if the mind is controlled by the intellect, if you are the one turning the key, it opens the door to liberation and peace. That is friend mode.
Okay.
But if the mind runs wild, if it's driven by impulse and craving and fear, if it controls you, then it locks the door. That is enemy mode.
So how do we make sure we're the ones turning the key? Because the text has this phrase, elevate yourself by yourself, which I have to admit sounds a bit like pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
I can see why it sounds that way.
And we generally know that doesn't work if you're stuck in quicksand.
It's deeper than the bootstrap analogy.
Yeah.
The phrase in Sanskrit is udhard atmanatmanam. And here's where it gets fascinating linguistically. In this one verse, verse 6.5, the word Atma is used multiple times in rapid succession.
I noticed that. Atma usually means soul, right? Or self.
Yes, usually. But Atma is one of those incredibly rich, context-dependent words. In different places, it can mean the body, the mind, the intellect, or the supreme soul.
So translating it is like solving a puzzle.
Exactly. So when the text says, elevate yourself by yourself, the commentary suggests it's really saying use your intellect, Atma, to control your mind to save yourself, Atma.
Wow. That's incredibly meta.
It is. But the takeaway is so empowering. It means no one else can do the mental push-ups for you. You can't outsource your mental peace to a guru or a partner or vacation.
You have to use your own higher judgment.
Your own higher judgment to parent your own toddler mind.
Parent your own toddler mind. I love that because that's exactly what it feels like. The mind says, I want the candy, or I want to scream because that person cut me off in traffic.
Right.
And the intellect has to be the adult in the room who says, I know you want that, but we're not doing that because we have goals and that's not going to help.
Precisely. And if you do that, if you win over the mind, verse 6.6 says, the mind becomes a bandhu, which means a friend, a relative. It becomes fertile ground. But if you don't, it remains a ripu, an enemy.
And an enemy living inside your own head.
It's the most dangerous kind of enemy because you cannot escape it.
Mm-hmm.
You can run from a physical enemy.
Yeah.
You cannot run from your own thoughts.
That is terrifyingly accurate. Okay, so we know we need to tame the beast. We know we need to be the parent. But let's get into the nitty-gritty. Segment 3, the mechanics of meditation.
The how-to.
The how-to. Because I was so surprised by how specific the text gets here. It's not just close your eyes and hope for the best. It's like a technical manual for the body.
It is surprisingly detailed. Verses 6.10 through 6.14 lay out the physical requirements. And it starts with the environment. It says you need a clean place.
Which puts my messy desk to shame immediately.
Well, the idea is that a cluttered space leads to a cluttered mind. It makes sense. But then it gets even more specific about the seat itself. It says the seat should be neither too high nor too low.
The Goldilocks zone of seating.
Right. And think about the logic behind that. If the seat is too high, like you're sitting on a rock ledge, you have a subconscious fear of falling. Your nervous system stays on high alert.
You can't relax.
You can't fully relax. And if it's too low, say right on the damp ground, you might be disturbed by insects or the cold. It's all about creating a sense of safety and stability so the nervous system can finally downregulate.
And then there's the 3-layer seat. This was wild to me. Kusa grass on the bottom, a soft animal skin in the middle, and a clean cloth on top. It sounds like a very specific spiritual sandwich.
It's ancient engineering. The kusa grass is rough, and it insulates against the damp earth. It was also believed to have certain energetic properties that shield the practitioner.
Okay.
The animal skin, usually deer skin or tiger skin in the old texts, provides warmth and acts as the barrier against, well, what they might have called static electricity or energy dissipation that kept your own energy contained.
And the cloth on top is for comfort.
For comfort and cleanliness. So it's basically the ancient version of buying a high-end, ergonomic Herman Miller chair. You're systematically trying to remove physical discomfort from the list of reasons your mind wanders.
You don't want your leg falling asleep to be the reason you don't reach enlightenment.
Exactly. That would be a shame.
Fair point. And then the posture. Body, head, and neck in a straight line. Firm.
This is crucial, and every meditation tradition agrees on this. When the spine is erect, the diaphragm can move freely, which allows for deep, full breathing. If you slump, you compress the lungs, your oxygen level drops, and the mind becomes dull or sleepy.
The erect spine keeps you alert.
Alert but relaxed. It's a balance.
And the gaze. This one made me laugh initially. The text says to gaze at the tip of the nose. I immediately asked myself, does this mean I'm supposed to cross my eyes? Because that seems counterproductive to relaxing.
A very common question. No, it doesn't mean cross-eyed. That would just give you a headache. It's about a soft, unfocused gaze.
So you're not actually looking at your nose.
No. The idea is this. If your eyes are wide open and looking around, you're distracted by the directions, what's happening to the left, to the right. If your eyes are fully closed, the tendency for a beginner is to fall asleep or get lost in daydreams.
The mental movie starts playing.
Exactly. The tip of the nose gaze is that middle ground. It centers the focus. It keeps you alert, but directs the energy inward. In a modern sense, it prevents you from looking at your phone.
It limits visual input.
Slice.
But then there's another part of this mechanics section that I found really, really relatable. It's what I'm calling the Goldilocks rule of consumption. This is in verses 6.16 and 6.16.
Ah, yes. Moderation. This is where Krishna warns against all extremes. He says yoga is not for the person who eats too much, nor for the person who eats too little.
And it's not for the one who sleeps too much or the one who stays awake all night.
Right.
I feel like this is a direct call out to modern culture. We have this hustle culture that says, I'll sleep when I'm dead, I'm running on coffee and adrenaline. And then we have the flip side, which is total burnout, which leads to binge watching TV and lethargy.
The text calls for a regulated life. The Sanskrit word is yukta. Yukta means yoked or disciplined, but in the sense of balance. Yuka ahara viharasha, regulated eating and recreation.
Regulated work, regulated sleep.
Everything in balance. And the text says that for the one who is yukta, yoga becomes dukkha, the destroyer of sorrow.
That's a powerful promise. Routine kills sorrow. We usually think routine kills fun, or routine is boring. But this is saying it actually creates the stability you need to not be miserable.
It manages your body's energy levels. Think about it. If you fast too hard, which was a competitive sport among ascetics back then, and sometimes fad dieters today, you get weak, dizzy, and irritable. You can't meditate if you're fainting or hangry.
Hangry is definitely an obstacle to enlightenment.
Definitely. And on the other hand, if you stuff yourself, you get the food coma. You get sleepy and dull. You can't meditate if you're snoring. The body needs to be light but nourished, calm but alert.
There's another term in this section that I want to ask about, brahmachari. Now, I've always heard this defined strictly as celibacy,
Right.
and that's usually where a lot of modern people tune out because they think, well, I'm married or I want to be in a relationship, so I guess this path isn't for me.
It is often interpreted that way, especially in monastic traditions, and that's a valid interpretation for that path.
Yeah.
But the source material gives a beautiful etymological breakdown that broadens it.
Okay.
The word is made of two parts, Brahma plus Akshara. Brahma means the absolute, the great, the supreme truth. Achara means to move, to walk, or to behave.
So it means walking with God or moving in the truth.
Yes. A brahmachari is one whose mind moves or dwells primarily in thoughts of the divine. It's about where your mental energy is invested.
So it's a mental discipline, not just a physical prohibition.
Exactly. You could be physically celibate, but your mind could be obsessed with romance or lust all day. And in that deeper sense, you wouldn't be practicing brahmacharya.
Conversely.
Conversely, you could be a family person whose mind is constantly anchored in the bigger picture, seeing the sacred in your partner and your children, treating your relationships with reverence, and you are fulfilling that vow. It's about focus.
Okay, so we've got the seat, we've got the posture, we're not eating too much pizza, and our mind is focused on the big picture. We sit down to meditate. What is the goal? What are we looking for? That brings us to segment 4, the lamp and the wind.
This is really the poetic heart of the chapter. Verse 6.1 gives us the ideal image. As a lamp in a windless place does not flicker.
It's such a peaceful image, a steady flame, straight up. No flickering, just pure light.
That represents the disciplined mind. When the external winds of desire and fear and distraction are blocked out, the inner awareness, the flame of consciousness, shines steadily on the self. It doesn't waver.
That sounds amazing. That sounds like the goal.
Yeah.
But then comes the reality check. And this is why I love Arjuna so much. He is the original skeptic.
He's so relatable.
He listens to this beautiful description of the steady lamp, and he basically says, Krishna, are you kidding me?
He really does. In verses 6.33 and 6.34, Arjuna essentially stops the car. He says that this yoga of equanimity you're talking about, this steady mind, I don't see how it's possible. Not for me.
He calls the mind turbulent, strong, and obstinate. And then he says, controlling it is as hard as catching the wind.
Imagine that image. Trying to catch the wind in your hands. It's futile. And remember who is saying this. This is Arjuna. He's not some lazy guy.
No, he's a warrior of immense discipline.
He can shoot arrows into invisible targets just by hearing the sound. He has mastered the external world. He has incredible physical and mental control. But even he admits that his own mind is harder to control than any enemy on the battlefield.
It's so validating. If a legendary hero can't focus, maybe I shouldn't beat myself up for getting distracted by what I want for lunch.
Exactly.
But Krishna doesn't just say, yeah, bummer, it is hard. He gives a solution, a two-pronged approach.
He does. But first, he validates Arjuna. He says, yes, O mighty armed one. Without a doubt, the mind is restless and hard to curb. He acknowledges the struggle. He doesn't dismiss it.
That's important.
Very. Then he gives a formula, abhyasa and vairagya, practice and detachment.
Let's break those down. Practice abhyasa. This isn't just do it once and you're good.
Not at all. The text says you have to pull the wandering mind back again and again and again. Verse 6.26 says, from wherever the mind wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it and bring it back under the control of the self.
From wherever. So it goes to the grocery list, pull it back. It goes to the argument you had yesterday, pull it back. It starts planning your vacation, pull it back.
It's a muscle. The best analogy I've heard is training a puppy. You tell the puppy to sit. It sits for a second, then sees the squirrel and runs away. You don't scream at the puppy for being a puppy.
Right.
You gently pick it up, bring it back to the spot, and say, sit. And you do that 1,000 times. That is abhyasa.
And then the second prong, detachment, vairagya. This is where the commentary gave us that hilarious but perfect analogy of the elephant.
Oh, the drunk elephant. Yes. This is a classic example from the Vedantic tradition.
Please explain this, because drunk elephant sounds like a great band name, but a terrible state of mind.
So the mind is compared to a wild, powerful elephant. It's strong and chaotic. Now imagine this elephant is also drunk on the wine of sensory desire. It's completely out of control.
Sounds familiar.
So what do we usually do? We might try to calm the elephant down by feeding it bananas, giving it what it wants.
Right. The craving pops up, you satisfy it.
And for a moment, while the elephant is eating the bananas, it's quiet. You think, peace. I solved the problem. But as soon as the bananas are gone,
It's wilder than before.
wilder than before, and now it's energized because you just fed it a bunch of sugar. This is exactly what we do with our cravings. I'm stressed, I'll just scroll social media for 5 minutes. I'm anxious, I'll just eat this cake.
You're feeding the elephant.
You are feeding the elephant. The commentary says you cannot tame the senses just by feeding them what they want. That is not vairagya. Vairagya, or detachment, is realizing that the satisfaction from the external object is temporary and ultimately illusory. You have to stop feeding the beast.
That is tough love. It means you have to sit with the discomfort of the craving without giving into it.
Yes. You have to let the elephant trample around in its little paddock for a bit without giving it another banana. Eventually, if you don't reinforce the behavior, it calms down. It realizes the tantrum doesn't work.
I think that's the hardest part for modern listeners. We are trained to treat discomfort as a problem to be solved immediately. I'm bored, where's my phone? I'm lonely, where's the app?
And that is precisely why the mind remains turbulent, as Arjuna says. Vairagya is the courage to say, I am not going to fix this feeling with a distraction, I'm going to sit with it.
Okay, so we're practicing, we're detaching, we're ignoring the elephant. But what if we're just not good enough? What if we run out of time in this life? This brings us to segment 5, the fear of failure. This, to me, is the most emotional and profound part of the whole chapter.
It addresses a deep existential anxiety that I think everyone feels. Arjuna asks in verses 6.37 to 6.39 about the sincere but unsuccessful seeker. He calls this person the ayati, the one who lacks control, despite having shraddha, which means faith.
It's the person who tries really hard. They go to the yoga classes, they read the books, they try to be a good person, but they just keep messing up.
They get angry, they get greedy, they get distracted.
And then they die. They don't reach enlightenment or whatever the final goal is.
And Arjuna asks this devastating question. Does this person perish like a severed cloud?
That imagery just stuck with me. A severed cloud.
It's beautiful and tragic, isn't it? A cloud that is torn apart from the main mass by the wind. It belongs nowhere.
Yeah.
It can't rain. It can't provide shade. It just dissolves into nothing.
And Arjuna is asking, if I give up worldly enjoyment to pursue this spiritual path, but I fail to reach the spiritual goal, have I lost both? Am I a loser in this world and the next?
It is the ultimate fear of wasted time. I spent 5 years on this relationship and it failed. I spent 10 years on this career and I got laid off. Was it all for nothing?
And Krishna's response in verse 6.4 is one of the most reassuring sentences in all of world literature. He says, Nahe kalyanakrit kashid durgatam tatgachati.
Which translates to,
My dear friend, one who does good never comes to ruin.
never comes to ruin. That is a guarantee, an absolute promise.
It's a cosmic insurance policy.
It is. And he explains why. He says spiritual effort is unique. In the material world, if you build a house halfway and then run out of money, the half-built house just rots. It's a waste.
Right.
But in the spiritual world, effort is never lost. It is stored. It's like a cosmic savings account.
So what happens to it? Where is it stored?
The text describes a specific mechanism of rebirth. Krishna says that if you fail in your yoga practice in this life, you don't go to hell or dissolve like a cloud. You are reborn. And he outlines 2 specific options for this failed yogi.
Okay, what's option A?
Option A is that you are reborn in the home of the pure and prosperous. The Sanskrit is Shutinam Shamatam.
So you get a comfortable life, a good family, enough money.
Yes, you are born into a family where basic survival is not a struggle. You have resources. You have a supportive environment. The idea is that the universe gives you a kind of spiritual scholarship, so you can focus on your practice without worrying about where your next meal is coming from.
That completely reframes the idea of privilege, doesn't it? We usually think of wealth or a good birth as just luck. This suggests it might be an opportunity earned from past effort, specifically to continue the work.
Exactly. It's not a reward to be enjoyed, but a facility to be used. But then there is option B, which Krishna says is even rarer and more difficult to obtain.
Which is?
To be born into a family of learned yogis, a family of wise people.
So you're born to parents who are already on the path.
Right. Parents who value wisdom over wealth. In option A, you have the money, but you might get distracted by the luxury. In option B, you are born into a context where wisdom is the currency. You start with the knowledge from day one.
And here's the part I loved, verse 6.44. It says that in this new life, the person is irresistibly drawn to the path because of their previous practice. It's like spiritual muscle memory.
That is the key phrase, purva abhyasena, by previous practice. The effort you put in 500 years ago is what creates that inexplicable pull you feel today.
I love that idea. You know that feeling when you pick up a book on a certain topic or hear a piece of music or walk into a certain kind of space and you just feel this sudden, intense pull, like, I know this, I need this.
The Gita suggests that is not an accident. That is the momentum from your past efforts kicking in. You aren't starting from scratch. You are picking up exactly where you left off.
That takes so much pressure off. It makes it a long game. We're talking lifetime. So if I have a bad meditation session today, or if I lose my temper with my kids, it's not a catastrophe.
Not at all.
I haven't ruined my spiritual path.
Not in the slightest. It's just one rep in a workout that spans centuries. No effort is ever wasted.
So if we stick with it, lifetime after lifetime, what is the end game? What does the successful yogi actually look like? This brings us to our final section, segment 6, the vision of unity.
The result isn't just that you are calm and can focus well. It's a radical change in how you see reality itself. Verses 6.29 to 6.32 describe the yogi as samadarshana, one who sees with equal vision.
Seeing the same everywhere.
Yes, seeing the divine, the self, the Atma, in the virtuous person and in the sinner, in the friend and in the enemy, in a piece of gold and in a clod of earth.
Now, is this just an abstract, everything is one kind of hippie vibe, or is there a practical application to this? Because seeing a rock is the same as gold seems tricky.
It leads to the highest form of ethics imaginable. Verse 6.32 is essentially the golden rule, but with a deep metaphysical basis. It says, he is a perfect yogi who, by comparison to his own self, sees the true equality of all beings in both their happiness and their distress.
Can you break down that comparison to his own self part?
It means the yogi realizes, on a fundamental level, that you are not separate from me. The same consciousness that experiences my joy and my pain is the consciousness that experiences your joy and your pain. Therefore, if I hurt you, I am literally, not just metaphorically, hurting myself.
So I wish for you what I wish for myself. Happiness and the absence of sadness, because I see this same self in everyone.
It moves beyond sympathy, which is I feel for you, and even beyond empathy, which is I feel with you. It moves to identity. I am you.
That is profound. And that vision is why the text ends with a kind of hierarchy, right? In verses 6.46 and 6.47, Krishna ranks the yogi.
He does. He says the yogi, the one who has this direct experience, is superior to the ascetic, who just tortures the body with penance. He is superior to the jnani, the intellectual who just has book knowledge.
And superior to the karmi, the ritualist who just goes through the motions.
Yes.
Why is the yogi superior to the intellectual, the jnani? I would have thought knowledge is power.
Knowledge is a map. Yoga is the actual journey. The jnani knows the chemical formula for water and can read you a beautiful description of an oasis. The yogi has actually drunk the water.
Lived experience versus theory.
The yogi has the lived experience of connection, not just the theory of it.
And the most superior of all, who's at the very top?
The text concludes chapter 6 by saying, and of all yogis, the one with great faith who always abides in me, thinks of me within himself, and renders loving service to me. He's the most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all.
It circles back to the heart.
It circles back to love. It's not just mechanical discipline or intellectual understanding. The highest state is a loving connection.
Wow. So let's bring this all home. We started with the monkey mind, the noise, the distraction. We talked about the myth that you have to quit your job to be spiritual. You don't. You just need to renounce the anxiety attached to it.
We looked at the mind as a key, a neutral tool, that depending on how you turn it can be your best friend or your worst enemy.
We walked through the surprisingly detailed mechanics, the clean spot, the straight spine, the regulated diet, the whole Goldilocks zone for the body.
We discussed the two essential tools, abhyasa, practice, which is like patiently training a puppy.
And vairagya, detachment, which is not feeding the drunk elephant. I'm going to remember that one.
And then we found that incredible safety net. The fear of failure is an illusion because no spiritual effort is ever wasted. We are playing a very, very long game.
It's a journey from the tactical how to sit on a cushion to the cosmic how to see God in everyone.
From the physical to the metaphysical.
So here is a provocative thought to leave our listeners with today. The text suggests that if you are listening to this right now, if you felt a pull to click on this deep dive about an ancient Sanskrit text, it might not be an accident.
It might be your pravabhyasana, your previous practice.
Exactly. You might be the failed yogi from the text picking up the thread. Maybe you did some of this work 500 years ago, and today is just the next step. So the question to you is, if your mind is a key, are you locking the door or are you opening it today?
Beautifully put.
Thanks for diving in with us. Go tame that elephant. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.